The building size really affects the cost, right? So in Australia, we tend to build very, very big. If you want big and you also want it to be high performance, it's going to have a cost. If your priority is performance and you can live with 25 square meter less house, you're making a saving and you're putting your money into the performance. It's a matter of choice as well.
G'day guys, welcome to the MTDC Lounge. This is a podcast that breaks down everything you need to know about designing and building your ultimate home and what to expect. Whether you're a DIY renovator, a budding developer, or everything in between, we'll dive into the building journey, touching on what to expect, what's next, and how to go about it. We'll hear from a heap of experienced consultants and trades about all aspects. So let's get stuck in. Welcome to the lounge. G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of the MTDC Lounge. You're here with your host Matt, and tonight we've got an extra special guest, Gio from Ninin Studios. He's going to talk to us about what it means to have a passive house and have a nice, comfortable place, whether you're in the middle of winter or right in the middle of summer. If you haven't liked, subscribed, or shared yet, get on it. Come and have a listen. Gio, how are you, mate?
Hi, Matt. Yeah, I'm good, thanks, and thanks for having me here.
Been a conversation we've been driving for a long time at the moment because it's such a big thing. Because tonight's episode we're talking about passive house. How can we make our houses more comfortable? So before we kick off, mate, tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Jonathan, but you can do Gio. It's easier. It's a funny Italian spelling, my name. And I'm originally from Italy. Grew up in the northeast of Italy in a little town at the feet of the Dolomites, so quite far away from Australia. Nevertheless, I had an opportunity and got to move to Sydney in 2014, and since then I've been working here. It kind of changed a bit for me when I moved to Australia. Like before, in Europe, I was practicing with just bigger architectural practices, and when I moved here, instead, I started to specialize on single residential dwellings and homes. And progressively in this journey, I discovered that I kind of needed to learn a bit more about how to make buildings comfortable. And that, sparked my interest, and I trained to become a passive house designer and also to become a NatHERS assessor. So I kind of work across the design and also the performance of the buildings in my practice.
Nice. So it's a big thing at the moment, particularly on this east coast of Australia. We can get all seasons throughout the day. What do you find is, the best way to handle designing a home in accordance to, let's say, passive house?
There are several approaches. As you say, that's a very hot topic at the moment. There is a climate that is also changing, and there is much more awareness, I think, about this issue, and also a desire, I think, from people to achieve a higher level of comfort in their homes. So it's definitely something that is picking up. There are many different ways you can approach the problems, and that responds also to the budget as well that you have to play with your hands. So it's not passive house is one of the solutions, is one of the most comprehensive, but it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario.
When you're doing the courses and things like that for the passive house, there's principles. There's obviously principles behind the passive house design. Let's walk through them.
Sure. So passive house works on 5 principles. Quite a few of these are also the same, as I said, from NatHERS and BASIX. So the 5 principles are provided to the building adequate thermal insulation, appropriate performance glazing, minimizing the thermal bridges. The thermal bridges are all these spots that allow the heat to go in and out very easily from your building, uncontrolled. And then there is a high level of air tightness. And then something that I haven't mentioned before that is very, very important is an appropriate ventilation strategy. Because, well, the moment you make your building airtight, you create a higher risk for mold and condensation. So air tightness without ventilation does not work. The two things needs to be done together. And Passivhaus does very cleverly with these machines, which are called heat recovery ventilations machines, that are heat exchangers. So they bring in fresh air from the outdoors and exhaust the air from the indoor. And these two flows of air cross path in the machine. They don't mix, but they cross path and exchange energy so that the air that comes in is tempered by the temperature of the air that goes out. And that it means that it's like opening a window, but instead of having let's say, for example, that is winter, instead of opening the windows and having the cold coming in, you have the fresh air coming in, but you don't have the cold coming in together with the fresh air, which is brilliant. And another beautiful thing of these machines is that it allows you to filter the air that comes into your house. So again, it's a winter setting and it's cold outside, you want all your windows closed. The air that is coming, the fresh air is coming through entirely through this machine, and this machine has a filter that filters particle, dust, pollutants. It brings in much higher quality air in your building. And that's even more important in case of bushfires, because you can fit these HRVs with HEPA filters and also bathe, the smoke particles, which is very beneficial and such a big thing for health and comfort of the occupants.
That sounds like an amazing product. I'm surprised that it hasn't been advertised more. Actually, this should be that in my opinion should probably be a normal design feature in most houses.
I think so. I think it's one a really good trick that and very important. And you could install the HRV even if you're not targeting energy efficiency, but if you're targeting a healthy building environment, because of that filtering. And because also the continuous air circulation, like you can go on holiday, leave all your windows closed because for safety reason, and you're sure that, this machine, it's distribute fresh air around the house and there's no mold forming on the bedroom that stays, closed and stuffy for long. They works really well. So even if you don't have the most airtight building or the most efficient building, it can pay to install these systems in. Obviously, it's easier for new buildings, and it's easier when you're doing deep retrofit. Can be a bit finicky to fit them in a renovation, just because they have all these ducts that need to run basically in each room. But they're not too big. They're like 90 diameter flex ducts. They're relatively easy to sneak around the house and, to bring fresh air everywhere around. Also very efficient. The running cost is the equivalent of a light bulb, basically. The velocity of the air that needs to be processed by this machine is very low because you don't want to feel drafty. So it's not an air conditioning that blows the air out strongly. So when you open the core, you see a couple of computer-sized kind of fans in the machine. It's really simple technology that works really brilliantly.
That's incredible. They sound great. How many would you say per square meter?
Oh, it's one machine for the whole building.
Yeah, right. Oh, no, so even for the one duct. So if we've got one duct in each room, or
Yeah, you have one duct in each room, and there is a difference between extract rooms and supply rooms. So a bedroom, you always supply fresh air in the bedrooms, and a bathroom you always extract. So, well, you can think as it's like having your fan, in the bathroom running 24/7. So if there is any steam from a shower, etc., it will continually be extracted, and the even you can even take advantage of the heat of that, air full of steam from the shower that will help warming up the air that comes in a building. So a really brilliant system, really
Mm.
something
What's that system called,
worth
Gio?
looking at. Heat recovery ventilation machines, HRVs. Yeah, we're a bunch of suppliers in Australia. Yeah. There for apartment, is it possible also to install some local units just through the walls? They're not too different from like kind of look similar to the normal bathroom fan. Uh, yeah, they need to be installed in pairs and they're a bit less efficient. And how it works that these two units continue to change direction. Like one moment, one is pushing air in, the other moment, the other is pushing air out, and then they flip. And by changing this direction, they continuously basically keep the temperature of the air inside stable.
I think before we kind of really dive into what is Passive House, I think for all the players at home, I think I want to explain to them kind of what it means to have a passive house, a BASIX compliant house, and then a NatHERS report as well, because people just don't understand that they're all different things and they all mean different things. So I guess in your words, how would you explain the three?
Well, they are different things. At the same time, they are kind of the same things. They are performance standards that have different levels and work with slightly different parameters. But at the core, they're just systems that have a software at the deck that tells you what you need to do to create a comfortable. Um, Now, the main difference between BASIX and NatHERS, that are the standards here in Australia, compared to Passivhaus, is that Passivhaus keep into consideration airtightness a bit more, and it treats it as the benchmark for quality, while NatHERS and BASIX assume that a new build built by a quality builder will achieve a certain level of airtightness. So where the BASIX and NatHERS assessment and recommendation stops on paper, Passivhaus goes a bit of a step further and make sure that there is something on site, or that there is verification on site for those features and performances. But in summary, they are really very, very similar tools. And as you said, it's becoming now that the level of energy or comfort and energy efficiency is raising. They need to be used quite early in the piece, so that you can adjust your design to suit and to achieve this compliance without having to do it at a later date when you're already decided on your design, and it may be much more expensive to to adjust to achieve this level. Yeah. So it pays to do the analysis early, to get the professionals involved early, and to plan ahead and and go with that and roll with that.
The passive house thing is becoming a really big thing throughout Newcastle as well. There's a couple of great builders around in the area who are doing almost, I guess, the front runners with passive house. And
Mm.
some of the things that they're kind of explaining in their builds are, the air tightness. They're adding ply to their walls and their roof systems. They've got the low gap sarking as well that they kind of wrap the whole house in. Um, there's some really great methods out. What can someone expect to pay between a difference between a passive house and a very high rated BASIX?
It could be cost neutral.
Mm.
I will say that it is cost neutral if you compare a passive house with custom architect design homes of high end, high budget. Or better, I will say that passive house can be embedded in that kind of high end project without adding any additional cost. The difference between basic NatHERS or BASIX building and a passive house, you start to feel it when you go a notch down and you go more on an average mid quality kind of homes. There is still a price difference, which has to do with the Australian market not being as developed as the European or the US market. So there is a bit of catching up there. And it's generally cruising around the 10% more. And instead, I believe it doesn't almost make sense comparing passive house to a project home, like very, very entry level, because the difference in terms of performance is going to be very big, and the quality is going to be different. Like it's it's not the right comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's also really funny is some clients, or you get family members who live, some in southern New South Wales, some in northern New South Wales, but there's actually like a climate radius, isn't there, for each space. If you're you could have mum and dad living down in Sydney, and as they kind of come north, we know, like in ourselves, that it gets a little bit hotter, and the weather gets a little bit more wild. But there's actually a documented, climate for each of these spaces. So
Yeah, there are climate zones. All these three systems that we talked about, BASIX, NatHERS, and Passivhaus, include climate data in the calculations. And all the recommendations that the software spits out, it's tailored to your climate. So you passive house, but also natives for what it matters, advocates for the right amount of insulation that is required to achieve a certain level of comfort. It doesn't push you to upspec everything. Which is why houses can look very differently and cost very differently. If you are in, in the Alpine region where you really have to beef up your wall and have a lot of insulation, or if you're in Newcastle, which is very nice, benign climate, it's not too hot, not too cold, you can get away with relatively little and get a high performance there.
if that wasn't a come to
So
Newcastle ad, I don't know what is. Um, but when you notice when you're starting to do your designs for your clients, do you start to feel whether or not you are passive related? And let's say someone comes in entry level, do you find that you automatically start including a lot of the passive house, I guess, design detail into that lower end BASIX design?
uh, I do, because that's a bit my specialization,
Mm,
and I trained and I like to use the tool very early
mm,
and to model and see what I can do with the buildings. And if I can integrate some features that give you great results and great performance at a cost that meets the budget, yeah, I'm there investigating how I can do that. Uh, if it's prohibitive, well, I'll look at other strategies. But it's nice to, at the very beginning of a process, to be there and just look at, oh, that's really beneficial for the building. Can we achieve it? And immediately consider those things. Yeah, it pays. It's good practice, I believe.
Do you find that you design for the NatHERS and the BASIX and Passive House before you design the structure itself? Do you find that you start looking for the, I guess, do you design for the passive before you start designing for the house?
I do I do probably design a bit more freely at the beginning. You always start with concept, with sketch. You you have a very important things to meet, which is the brief from the clients. You want to give them a good products and what they want. I spend a lot of time in planning phase, making sure that the rooms flows nicely one with the other. Um, yeah, but in the back of my mind, I always have a tiny bit that knowledge. So when I place a window on you know, south-facing wall, I already know that I don't want it to make it too big because otherwise it's going to be a cold window. And yeah, these kind of things becomes a bit of second nature after a while, and um, yeah, you just adjust your way of designing to this additional information. But there is still a lot of freedom.
Well, you touched on it very briefly there. So I think, and one of the things that we do, and like any good designer should be doing, they should be paying attention to the environmental effects, like what walls are facing south,
Mm.
what living rooms, what spaces are in incorporated into your space and with the design. So as we kind of move through, that the day in particular, if we've got the north side facing an enclosed room, it's always going to cook. We start, it comes almost second nature to design a flow
Yeah, yeah.
regarding the environmental effects, and then it becomes a matter of how much more can we make it more comfortable with the products that are coming out in the industry at the moment. And I guess that's the best way to start the segue of what are the first things that people can kind of consider before any of their houses have been designed, before anything kind of comes to them. What are the things that they should expect or should even ask for when designing their place?
Sites change a lot, right? And buildings change a lot, and it's a bit hard to respond because it depends on which building you play with. Um, in general, well, I think from a client perspective, it's always worth to educate yourself a bit, and try to clarify what are your requirements and what you like and what maybe I will make a list of the problems that you have in your current housing situation and the problems that you want to solve with your new projects. And then I will encourage people to, engage professionals and a team quite early, and to use builders and architects as involve them in the breathing kind of session, really building the correct brief for what you want to achieve, basically. It's hard to say what's the first things that you should think, like um, changes.
This is, I guess, how we kind of have our conversations with our clients. I mean, if they're going that 2-story build, and they want that passive house, or they want that comfortable, that living, we kind of talk to them about insulation in the subfloor, making sure that that's appropriate. I think what kind of walls that they are making downstairs with in particular. I mean, if they're going for a double brick or even double walling for some of that that excessive bat, those insulation bats, I think. And one thing that I find that we always talk to the clients about, and it's such a crazy thing, but it's the color, like the color that they actually make their house of, that can actually that can have a direct effect on how comfortable the house is. If it's black or if it's on the darker spectrum, they're gonna cook the house, and then at the end of the day, they want to start leading down towards that that lighter spectrum, and God forbid they want to put in the you're standing up seam or you're still cladding because we won't even do it anymore because we just get knocked on the head straight away.
Well, it kind of goes again for me
Mm,
is like in this piece of getting information, inform yourself,
mm,
and talk to professionals or people that have the experience, because sometimes you have to review a bit your point of views on certain things, like a very dark house that attracts a lot of heat in a very hot climate. It's not going to be a particularly good idea. And as much as you may like a black house, you really need to consider carefully before venturing down that way. It's not impossible. I mean, you could have your house in a beautiful bush settings with a lot of trees shading, and it could work. But yeah, there are considerations that needs to be taken into account.
mm. You're very right because the BASIX and the NatHERS reports are so in depth. They do ask you about what trees are around and whether or not you're being overshadowed or
Yeah,
anything that's in your immediate area that would give your house a bit of a reprieve, if you will, to try and make that house a little bit more comfortable.
yeah,
And the amount of times that we tell clients on a regular basis, it's they come in, they say, oh, we want, the eucalyptus, or we want, monument, or something like that in terms of their cladding. And
yeah,
it's just like, we can do that. But just know that you'll be juicing up your insulation. You'll be doing, what you do somewhere in terms of basics will directly affect, the next steps. And unfortunately, what happens is it becomes a domino effect the whole way down.
yeah. Which, sorry, I feel like a bit of a broken record, but it goes back to this idea of doing these analysis a bit early in the piece, so that you can control and manage expectation, and make up your mind on what needs to be done, and not being disappointed later down the track, discovering that some solution that you have in mind is actually not optimal. And yeah, it's hard to change your mind. So it's better if you give yourself time to do that. And building, designing and building is such a long process all the time. So um, is it, it's yeah, I think it pays to start it with this mentality that it's going to be long and complicated, and have to I'll have to review a lot of drawings and make a lot of decision, and I will have to change my mind as well sometimes on certain things. But I don't know. That's the beauty of the profession. It's very interesting.
It is. It's an amazing profession, and as we kind of evolve as an industry, things like the passive house is going to become not just a selective part, but it's going to become the normal part of the design process. We need to have that passive house.
Yeah,
Our climate is getting hotter, places are getting colder. Things need to happen to make sure that we're comfortable, which completely leans into the next question I have for you: is passive house something that Australia should expect and will benefit from?
yeah, sure. Surely it is. And as we mentioned before, like the NatHERS is also raising these benchmark levels, which means that with you're getting closer to passive house regardless, willing or not. Um, and passive house, although it's really, I think it's a really strong standard and has some really good benefits, as really strong scientific basis behind, and and a lot of attention to the comfort and how to deliver comfort for the occupants. On that, actually, it's as you say, it's very important to have comfort in a home. I think that even in the past, people wanted to have comfort in a home. It's just that it was extremely cheap to heat your home, and maybe people also have a bit more frugal attitude, so they could live heating up just a couple of rooms with their fireplace, and but it was possible in the past to have a nice toasty room with a fireplace, and then sure the bedroom was a bit colder, but you could live with it. And now you can't have a fireplace, especially if you're in the city, and you need to rely on expensive electricity to heat yourself. And if you want to do it efficiently, you have to do something to your building envelope so that it performs and it works. You know, despite this issue.
Well, that at the very basic level, a BASIX, a passive house, NatHERS, they're all there to support living without the need of artificial heating or cooling. That's the whole purpose. And I think the more money that people spend on the passive house and the BASIX and the NatHERS at the start, the more money that they spend there, over the long term, they are going to save their money every day of the week.
Yeah. And this point of airtightness in Passivhaus, I think it's really interesting. And as I said, it's a bit of a differentiation compared to BASIX and NatHERS, who make assumptions about the airtightness. So airtightness means that you know the volume of air that is inside your building, and you know how fast it escapes from your building. So when you're heating or cooling a building, you're generally heating and cooling the air that is inside that building. If your building let that air escape every 10 times in an hour, and your air conditioning or heater takes 6 minutes to heat up the air in your room or in your house, it means that literally you can never switch off the air conditioning. As soon as you do it, the house will start to quickly pick up and balance with the temperature of the outside. Instead, if your building is more airtight, and Passivhaus goes for air changes per hour that are below 1, you hit the air in your house once, and then you know that for 1 hour is going to be warm and comfortable. So it prevents you from continuing to have to run the air conditioning or heating device. So, and that's why the Passivhaus standard is perhaps a bit more forgiving with buildings that are built in suboptimal sites, where you could not take advantage of a perfect orientation, or where you don't have a beautiful, sea view with sea breeze coming in and cooling, but you have a terrace house on a busy road and it's oriented wrong. This trick of making it airtight really help to offset the shortcomings that building has in terms of suboptimal orientation, for instance. So that's where Passivhaus go a smidge beyond what NatHERS and BASIX do, basically.
Well, the whole house is comfortable and it's built for purpose, which should be fantastic. Given the swings in our temperatures and our seasons, do you think it's realistic for us to expect that this is going to become the normal design process for all of the houses moving forward?
I think it's, it partially already it is. And it's just to deliver a quality building and to understand how it performs well, and to make sure that it is stress test as well, so that it can accommodate for some further changes in the climate. You need to do this little switch and going from just relying on the experience of the designer and the builder. They will do their best with their judgment and most of the time you do the right thing, but introducing the measurement, what gives you that additional safety, you can really say that, has been modeled and documented and realized in a way that the model show that it will work. It's extra peace of mind. So always worth getting a building model with NatHERS, with Passivhaus, and get the certificates, because it's a very important step to ensure that your building is built in a quality way.
So you want to make sure before you start designing your home, you've got your team around you, you've chosen everybody that's going to get you in the right places. You want to make sure that you're prepared for a passive house and what that means for, I guess, the build cost and the differences between what a passive house means and BASIX. I know we touched on it briefly before, but I mean, when we're building something new and fresh, we've obviously got you've got the spec homes that have to meet that 7 stars, and when you've got the custom architecturally designed passive houses, what I guess the hard and fast number that I want to see is that, what is the cost expectation? Is it 25%? Is it 10% between the two? For somebody to walk into an architectural design house, and that's going to be the difference between somebody saying, well, I want an architecturally designed house that's going to be appropriately looked after in terms of passive house and BASIX, opposed to we might get 7 stars based on the quality of product that we get from the spec homes.
That's as I say, that's important, though. It's easier to achieve passive house or achieve very high performance in a high-end architecturally designed home. It's easier just because there's a less budget restriction. That's it. But passive house can be done very, very cheaply, and good performance building can be done very, very cheaply, because as I said at the beginning, you are playing with the shell of a building, and building the shell, so roof, walls, windows, floors, it's roughly the 30% of the total cost of construction. So there is an increase in cost to achieve the high performance, but the increase in cost is an increase on that 30%, right? It will become, like 32 or 35. It's not a percentage on the whole building. And sometimes you can prioritize, maybe you can delay certain works or certain features, and just redirect the money on building the shell appropriately, which is the most important things, because once it's done, it's done. Like you can wait on installing a wardrobe, but you can't wait on getting the roof over the building. So there are ways to do it, and to do it cheaply. And planning early is the secret to find these ways and this solution that allows you to achieve this level of comfort that you want without breaking the budget. It's very hard to give percentages, or to give cost estimates, because buildings are different. The building size really affects the cost, right? So in Australia, we tend to build very, very big. If you want big and you also want it to be high performance, is going to have a cost. If your priority is performance and you can live with 25 square meter less house, you're making a saving and you're putting your money into the performance. It's a matter of choice as well, to some degrees.
Do you find the drive for the solar power and the battery appropriate for the passive house lifestyle?
Yeah, it's it's kind of a cherry on the cake. It's they're important, and I think that they're actually great when they're especially great when you can't do anything else. Like you're in a situation where you're building for whatever reason, it's a heritage building, etc. You cannot improve the performance beyond a certain point because you cannot replace the heritage windows or stuff like that. That's a moment where looking at the energy savings is very important because you know that your building will require a bit more energy to stay comfortable. And by having the solar panel, by having low energy LED lighting, by having more efficient appliances, a battery, all that helps offsetting some of the cost that you will have to keep that building comfortable. But if you're building from scratch, it's you're building your new home, I think it's the best approach is to first spend the money on the building envelope and make it comfortable, and then put the solar panel on top. Solar panel will literally, in a well sealed and well built house, pretty much zero your energy expenses. Yeah.
The batteries are getting so much better now, and I know I've got maybe 4 or 5 batteries at my place now, and they do a great job. They do an absolute great job, and I think with a great solar system, thicker walls, all your bits and pieces, all your air tightness, it's just going to make living in these houses so much more comfortable. I can't wait to see what comes out of this.
Yeah, and we're graced with so much sun as well in Australia. That, I mean, it seems silly not to harness its power in via the photovoltaic system or via orienting your building in an appropriate way to take advantage of it. That's something that all the standards we talked about, the BASIX, NatHERS, Passivhaus, they all advocate and encourage. They all want you to take all the passive solar, that's how they generally measure into consideration and implement them into your building because they're generally kind of cost neutral features that gives you big benefits. Yeah, cost neutral provided you are building from scratch, and you have the luxury of being able to reorient your building to the best side. Retrofit is actually a bit difficult. I think that's where the big challenge lies. I think a passive house or equivalent level of performance is definitely will definitely become mainstream with time. Because with demand, the cost of the components is going to go down. Like in Germany is where you need to insulate your house much more than here in Sydney. So you have to pay more for that performance building envelope. Is by paradox still cheaper to build to Passivhaus standard there than what you can do here.
We had James from Gablock here a couple of weeks ago, and he's bringing over the Gablock system from the European space, which looks really good. They had like the EPS system inside, and they had the compressed ply, kind of like Lego blocks. I think that was really cool to see, and systems like that, the innovative systems that are coming out from other countries and from colder climates or even some of the hotter climates. I just think as we start to adopt these, it's going to make our lives a whole lot easier.
They do. Yeah. I was recently, I'm working on this passive house consulting for a conversion of an industrial building in Sydney. From industrial to residential, and the architect specified some very high performance windows from Schuko. And when I first looked at the project on paper, I thought that it was doomed from a passive house perspective because it still looks like a warehouse of big spaces and a lot of glazing, but the windows really did the trick. So probably fairly expensive windows right now, but the cost of these components is going down. Like sourcing Passivhaus quality window up to a few years ago, it was very expensive exercise, but right now you can find that level of quality at almost the same price of a stock standard window here in Australia. Or think of this, in Europe, double glazing is cheaper than single glazing, just because the demand is so much bigger for double glazing that single glaze is becoming a specialty.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And everybody wants the double glaze now anyway. It's now the big thing. Everyone's like, oh, I want to make sure it's double glaze. Everything's just double glaze.
Yeah.
Trying to teach those clients that there's more to a wall than the window and the material that we build it out of. But yeah, that's there's so many steps to what makes a house nice and comfortable, and I think it's our job to make sure that, you know, they're led in the right way, and that's leaning right on that fact that as long as they've got that strong team behind them and that strong, you know, consultant situation, everything's going to be informed the way it should be.
Yeah, exactly. That's a key. That's a golden standard, to have a good team and a team of people you enjoy working with. Because, as I said before, like, it's a long process building, and it's challenging. It's challenging financially, and there are always moments that where things do not go exactly as per planned. You know, like the strange council condition on your condition of consent, and you will get angry, and you want to have in front of yourself a person that you respect and that you feel comfortable with, because you know, there will be angry moments, and having a nice team to work with really smooths so much the corners of this difficult process.
Everything takes longer. Everything's a little bit more expensive. Everything's a little bit more effort, and it doesn't matter how much preparation work we can do. There's always going to be that little curly bit that comes up that causes a little bit of grief, and it's just how quick can everybody jump on it to make sure it works, and everybody keeps moving ahead.
Yeah, cost, of course, it's a big cost of construction is a big constraint I find right now, and on the forefront of the mind of most people that are approaching building and designing. Like, that's it's difficult, but you know, again, it's a skilled team can help you navigate also the cost constraints and get the best for your bucks, for what you're spending.
All right, mate. Well, thanks so much for joining me. Feel free to head out to Gio's website called nininstudio.com.au. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to him, and we'll speak to you soon.
All right, wonderful. Thanks for having me, Matt, and have a great evening.
No worries, Gio. Thanks for answering a lot of questions for me, mate. I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to this week's app of The Lounge. To make sure you don't miss out on the next episode, hit subscribe. We'd love to get the message out to more homeowners like you. Make sure you leave a rating and a review, and we'll see you on the next app.